they always appear before death. That's what the old folks in this hospice say. Not everyone sees them. Only those with one foot already on the other side. They are not white, not light, not angels. No, these are shadows, gliding in the corners, under the beds, behind the curtains. At first, they just watch. Then they start to move. But old people love to talk. And if Harold Kincaid were younger, he would have laughed in the face of every dying superstitious fool in this place. But he is too old to laugh now. Harold lies in the dark, staring at the ceiling. His breath is shallow, his chest rising and falling slowly, reluctantly. The street lamp outside casts a dim glow through the window, and there they are, shifting shadows. He blinks, his dry eyelids scraping over his eyes. Maybe it's the morphine. Maybe it's just a dying mind playing tricks on him. But no, they move. In his sleep, he sees Emily, young again, in her favorite light dress. She's laughing, sitting at a small cafe table, leaning forward, and Harold finds himself thinking, just like before, how beautiful her neckline was. Then she lifts her head and his heart clenches. Emily's face is dark, lifeless, her eyes sunken deep into her skull. She doesn't speak, just opens her mouth and screams. Harold wakes up with a rasping gasp. The door swings open. A faint scent of lavender soap, the soft light from the hallway. "Are you all right, Mr. Kincaid?" asks Susan, the hospice nurse. He doesn't answer immediately, struggling for breath. The room is empty, no shadows, no Emily. "I'm fine," he croaks. "Time for your medicine," she says. He feels the needle pierce his skin and sinks into darkness. The day drifts by in a haze. Hot broth, a television show he doesn't watch. Harold waits for the sun to disappear, for the shadows to return. And they do. But now they do more than move. Now they form shapes. A circus unfolds on the ceiling. He sees it clearly. A tent with little flags, an arena, jugglers, a magician in a long coat. Tiny clowns drawn from black smoke, their laughter silent but still felt. It's a memory. He is 10 years old, his father holding his hand, and before him, a miracle. A traveling circus, lights, the smell of cotton candy and sawdust. But then the shadows change. They are no longer fun. The clowns turn toward him, smiling, mouths too wide, eyes endless black voids. The magician removes his hat, and beneath it, a face like a snake. The lions in the ring attack their trainer, tearing him apart. Harold's heart hammers in his chest. He wants to look away, but he cannot. The door opens. Susan enters the room again, syringe in hand. The shadows scatter. But before they vanish completely, they take on a new form. A tall figure in a dark cloak, its face like a skull. And it shakes its head as if saying, "No." Now Harold knows this is not just a trick of his mind. The shadows are trying to tell him something. But what? He waits, unable to sleep. The light fades, the street lamp casts pale streaks across the ceiling. The shadows move again. This time, not a circus, a maternity ward, small cribs, a nurse holding a newborn. And he watches as she gives an injection. The baby stops moving. Harold's dry lips tremble. He doesn't understand what he's seeing until he notices the woman's face. It's Susan. The door opens. She enters, syringe in hand, like always. What is this?" His voice is weak, shaking. "Just your medicine, Mr. Kincaid," she says. "You kill them," he whispers. Her face doesn't change. It's time to sleep. she says softly, pushing the needle into his vein. Cold spreads through his body, but Harold is no longer afraid. He knows what comes next. After death. Death isn't so bad, at least not here. Emily is waiting, and their baby, the one they lost so long ago. And the shadows are here too. Now Harold sees everything, the past, the present, the future. He looks down at the dimly lit room, where his body has already grown cold. Susan stands, and syringe is still in her hand. She stares at it, her fingers trembling. This isn't real. But reality is thick in the air, clinging to her like the scent of antiseptic. Harold watches as her lips move, forming silent pleas, but she can no longer speak. The shadows close in, wrapping around her, pulling her down. And when the last voice in her mind finally breaks her completely, when the last ghost whispers the final word, her shaking hand lifts the syringe, and she plunges it into her own neck. Her body crumples to the floor. The syringe dangles from her skin like a grotesque ornament. Her breath shudders, her pupils dilate, and her limbs jerk once, then go still. The shadows pause. Then, slowly, they begin to retreat, melting back into the walls, slipping beneath the bed, dissolving into the dark corners of the room. Harold watches it all from the other side, weightless, untethered. The souls have had their justice. Their whispers fade into silence, and for the first time in a long, long while, Harold feels at peace. The morning comes. The hospice workers find the bodies. His, lying peacefully in bed, and hers collapsed on the floor. No one understands what happened, but the shadows know. And Harold, wherever he is now, knows too.